Oh, hello there. I'm Cole Durrett, and this semester I gave a unit for the book, The Great Gatsby. We focused on a lot of themes and literary devices, but starting off, you know I had to give the kids some context. I held a 20-question Kahoot game asking basic questions about Scott F. Fitzgerald and the Jazz Age. This helped me to gauge their present knowledge of the author and time period and adjust the unit plan accordingly going forward. I learned that the students were actually quite knowledgeable about 1920s culture already, though of course they still had a lot to learn. This assessment guided my instruction with the final question: what is the American dream? Many students were not aware that the American dream can be anything, not just achieving a standard family unit, so I made sure to emphasize this later on during the American dream assignment. In the future, I would make these questions more relevant to the rest of the unit, as many of them do not come up again, such as the gangster question. During my actual lessons, I put a huge emphasis on writing, to the point where my students often chided me for using up all of their paper. Most classes would include a writing prompt at the end to test how the students have absorbed today's theme. From these writing prompts, I learned that while most of my students took in the themes rather well, others had slightly more trouble. For example, one writing assessment had them composing one narrative paragraph in first-person perspective, then a second one in third-person perspective. The goal, of course, was that the second paragraph could reveal details unknown in the first. However, some students did not take advantage of this narrative possibility and simply rewrote their paragraphs word for word with different pronouns. Overall, the students became much more invested in the themes, since they knew that I was going to make them spend time writing about them. In a way, when a student writes about a certain subject, they are intertwining their own life experiences with the material, giving them a more perspective and appreciation for the subject matter. A way in which these assessments guided future instruction can be found in the Flashback Assessment, in which I told the students to write about a past class that they enjoyed. One student wrote about a debate activity that he really loved in a previous English class, so I incorporated a similar activity in a lesson shortly afterwards. If I were to change these up in the future, I would probably require them to be longer, as my students were not accustomed to writing 5-paragraph essays by the end of the semester as I had hoped they would be. Also, I would include more quizzes. I noticed after the fact that I had not included a very diverse range of assessments, so I would likely replace a few writing prompts with more traditional quizzes. For the unit's final assessment, I assigned another essay, this one totaling at least 4 paragraphs in length. I used this assessment because it fell in line with what I had been doing up until that point, plus I wanted my students to get more experience writing more long-form essays. I also wanted to give them freedom in how they approached the assignment, which is why I allowed them to write about one of many of the themes we had covered throughout the week. From the assignment, I learned that my students were very intimidated by long essays, even though 4 paragraphs should not have been a problem for them at their grade level. As for the results of the essay, most of the students earned within an 80 to 90 range, or in other words, a B. The most common errors included grammar and spelling, indentation, and most importantly, a lack of depth to what the students were talking about. Many would write in circles, repeating the same adages over and over again without coming to any real conclusions or making any definitive statements about the themes that they were supposed to explore. As long as they hit the 4-paragraph requirement, I did give them at least a C. However, many students did not seem to come up with much to write about. The information I've learned from this test will encourage me to give my students more rigorous writing assignments in the future so that they will be more accustomed to the long-form composition. I will also probably give more specific instructions in the prompt, as this one might have been too vague and intimidating. I've learned that many students like to know exactly what they're going to be writing about, rather than having a blank canvas. In the future, I might change this assessment to allow typing rather than just writing. I do not personally care how the students compose their essays, but my CI preferred that they did not use the Chromebooks in that specific instance, so they had to write by hand. I would prefer that the students write in whichever way is most natural for them. Thank you.